Welcome to my channel. Do you ever have conversations with yourself in your mind? What language do you use? Perhaps it's your mother tongue. Maybe it's a mix. But what if I were to tell you your journey with learning English doesn't start with grammar books or perfect sentences? It begins with your thoughts. Silent, ordinary, everyday thoughts. Picture this. You get up and think to yourself, "Good morning." You come across your keys and think, "Here they are." You can hear the rain, and you murmur, "It's raining today." These aren't short phrases. They are small doors. And behind every door, there's a rich English world for you. You have no need of a teacher at this very moment. You don't even really need a notebook. Just your mind and a little English in it. Today, we begin a journey that is quiet but powerful. A trip where we not only learn English words like monkeys, but we also begin to think in English. It's soft, it's personal, but it's strong. If you're thinking a little differently, your English is growing. Stay with me until the end. Something wonderful is about to happen. Chapter 1. I changed my first mind. It is not uncommon for people to change their minds. It all began with one small sentence. I was in my kitchen, clutching a warm cup of tea. It was morning, quiet and tender. I would be thinking in my own language, which is how I would normally think, about the day, about what I needed to do, and about how sleepy I still was. But that day, I didn't. But that day, something different occurred. I glanced at the tea and thought, "Bring it on." 3 small words, but they were in English, and they all showed up all on their own. I didn't plan to say them. I didn't force myself. They just appeared. And I noticed. It was as if I was hearing a new voice within myself. A voice that was mine, but also not. A voice that wanted to grow. It was a moment that transformed everything. I also learned a simple, powerful lesson. I don't have to wait for a teacher. I don't have to wait until a class. I don't have to wait for someone to ask me a question. I can start now, right now, in my own mind. And so then I began to play with little thoughts. I said it in my mind. It's cold today. When I started eating, I said, "This looks good." If I forgot something, I was like, "Oh no." These were not grammar lessons. These were not flawless sentences. But they were mine. And they were in English. I felt a little weird about it at the beginning. My brain was trying to revert to my first language. It was faster and easier. But I gently pulled it back. Not the big, hard lessons, but the little soft sentences. Simple thoughts, I murmured to myself. One of my favorite places to play tennis was in front of a mirror. I would look at my own reflection, smile, and with my mind say, "You look tired today," or "Let's go," or "We'll be okay." It was as if they were talking to a friend, only they, in fact, the friend was me. Every little moment was an opportunity to practice. I wasn't there, waiting for an English conversation. I was already experiencing one, with myself. I reached for my phone and said, "Who texted me?" I walked past a flower and I went, "That's pretty." When I did something wrong, I caught myself saying, "It's okay." Not in my mother tongue, but in English. That moment was the spike. I didn't catch on until much later. I had dropped a spoon and I whispered, "It's okay." Then I froze. That was it. That was the real change. I had comforted my way through English. Not because I was practicing, not because I was trying, but because it felt natural. That was when I understood. It wasn't just a subject anymore. English. It was becoming part of me. Of course, I still had a long, long way to go. My grammar wasn't perfect. My vocabulary was small. But my thoughts, my beautiful, simple thoughts, were trudging out in English, one by one, day by day. And that's the first real classroom, not a school, not a book, but your mind, your life, your tea, your mirror, your soft mornings and silent walks. Every moment is a lesson, every thought is a teacher. So I invite you to try this, just once today. A small thought, a soft sentence. In your mind, you might say, "I'm prepared," or "Let's just do it," or even, "I'm learning." Say it when nobody is listening. Say it while you're combing your hair, drinking water, or slipping on your shoes. It may feel odd at first. It's not to worry if it's not perfect. You're not performing. You're just growing. And when you screw up, and you will, listen to the words you say. If one day, without realizing, you murmur, "It's okay" in English, smile. Because that's when something in you has shifted. That's your first thought in English. And it gets only more beautiful from here. Chapter 2. My practice room became my mind. It came on slowly, like sunlight spreading over a room. Once my first thought had transitioned into English, something beautiful happened. My brain didn't feel the need for permission to continue. One small sentence led to a long sentence, and one thought led to another thought. My brain was learning to live in English. I remember the first sentence I employed over and over was, "Where is my phone?" It was so normal, so simple. But whenever I lost my phone, and that was frequent, I inquired in English, not because I wanted to train, not because I planned it, because, well, it started to feel natural. "Where is my phone?" "It's sunny today." "I need to buy eggs." "That's a nice shirt." These were not textbook lines. They were not flashcards or grammar drills. These were real-life thoughts I had. From me. And they were happening in English. I didn't sit at a desk. I never needed a notebook or a teacher. My practice room was always with me. I carried it in my head, in my room, on the bus, and at the kitchen sink. What I would do is slip into the bathroom and think to myself, "I need to brush my teeth." I'd go to the fridge and I'd think, "There's no milk." And then at some point, something changed. I didn't wait for English time anymore. Suddenly, my life was all English time. I started treating English as if it was music. You don't sing just when you're on the stage. You hum while washing dishes. You drum your fingers as you wait. You sing quietly to yourself when you are alone. That is how I have come to feel about my English practice. Gentle little tune playing in the soundtrack of my life. The best part? No pressure, no fear, no one to correct me, no one to watch. I was alone with my English thoughts. I made mistakes, of course. I would say things like, I go store now, or he eat fast. But I didn't care. I just kept going. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being present. And then one day, I realized something that stopped me cold. I was getting out of my car, I was walking down the street, and I was looking up at the sky. It was bright and blue. Breaking out of the muteness was just words flowing. Nice day today. That was it. Just 3 words. But I never would have said them on purpose. I didn't push myself. They just came, like a breeze. I stopped walking. I stepped back onto the sidewalk and looked up. My heart felt full. I got emotional. I had not even tried, and the thinking was done in English. That was the spike moment, not a test, not a class. This wasn't a talk with some stranger, just a nice, quiet moment with me. It's difficult to describe, but I was beaming, not because I was fluent, not though my talking was ever so good, but because English had begun to reside inside me. It wasn't a visitor anymore. It was an integrated part of my thinking, my perception, and my daily goings-on. Since that day, I paid more attention to my own inner voice. I turned and asked myself, can I say this thing in English? Sometimes I could, sometimes I couldn't, but I always tried. I didn't sit around for a perfect sentence. I just used the words I had. And then, bit by bit, something magical occurred. English was no longer a foreign language. It felt like a friend, a gentle friend who walks by your side, who keeps you company, who talks with you and listens to you. I want to share this with you. Your greatest speaking partner can be your mind. You don't even need to perfect your grammar to begin. Okay, you don't have to have a big vocabulary. You simply need to be there, in the moment, and curious. So start with one sentence. Pick something simple. When you brush your teeth, think as you do it, I am brushing my teeth. When you eat, say, this is good. When you are picking out your clothes, think, I like this shirt. Say it softly in your head. Say it without fear. These are little thoughts with large strides. Your bedroom can also be a classroom. Your own thoughts sometimes can be your lessons. Your mind goes with you everywhere you go. That's because you take your English with you as well. And then one day, perhaps soon, you'll walk down the street somewhere, and a little sentence will go through your head, an English sentence, tender and mild, and you'll smile, because you will know you didn't cram it, you became it. Make your mind your gymnasium. You don't need permission. You're already ready. Chapter 3. I gave my feelings English words. Now why does love look blue? Something shifted when I stopped simply thinking in actions, but also naming my feelings in English. I didn't even know how crucial that was at first. But one day I felt sad, a quiet, heavy sadness. I sat on my bed and stared at the floor and whispered to myself, in my head, I'm sad. It was simple, just 2 words. But those words cracked open a door. Prior to this, I had used English for statements such as, I'm hungry, or I need water. But not how I felt on the inside. I knew I still felt in my mother tongue. Though angry, nervous, or excited, I would breathe in one language and think in another. It was as if my heart and my English were strangers. That day, something clicked. I thought, if I can say I'm sad, Maybe I can also say I'm tired or I'm okay. So I started to name my feelings in English. I'm scared. I feel lonely. I'm so happy today. I'm worried about tomorrow. And something lovely occurred. These words lent expression to my heart. A soft, sweet voice in English. I didn't want anyone else to hear. It's what I needed myself to hear. And that became my emotional practice, slowly, softly, by touch through the language. At times, I wasn't using the correct word. I wanted to have something to feel, but not know what to say. That's when I'd stop and think, what's the English word for that feeling? I would Google it, or else minimize the feelings to something simple. I feel not good, or I want to cry. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. More than grammar, it was a way of thinking. It was therapy. It was a way to know myself better. Because you can't heal that which you can't name. When I said, I feel lonely, I didn't feel so lonely anymore. Instead of saying, I'm excited, when I said excited, erase this word, and the sentence becomes, I haven't bought a house in 30 years and I'm really excited. So, I'm really, really excited. I felt greater joy. Words served to ferry my emotions like little boats on a river. I got nervous one night. My heart was heavy, and my mind was racing. I didn't know what to do. I sat by the window and gazed at the sky, and something inside me said, I'm okay. Just that. I'm okay. And then I felt okay. Not perfect, not happy, but calm, safe, heard. That was the spike moment. It wasn't a big event. No one was around. I wasn't making a speech or talking to someone, read in English from just sitting with myself, speaking honestly. And the language was holding me, tenderly. It didn't judge me. It didn't rush me. It just let me feel. That was the day I learned something powerful. English is not just for tests and travels. It's for your soul, too. You may tell the story in English. Not just the things, but the feels. You can say, I miss someone, or I'm proud of myself, or I feel stuck. You learn to comfort yourself with words like, it's okay, or I'll try again tomorrow. And the best part, you don't need fancy words, just small ones, simple ones, honest ones. In my notebook, I'd even made a little list of my understanding. I named it Words for My Heart. It had emotions I wanted to rehearse. Happy, sad, angry, calm, nervous, excited, tired, hopeful. I selected one daily and tried to use it in a sentence in my head. I'm afraid for English. I feel hopeful today. I'm tired but proud. The more I did it, the more I felt it came naturally. And the more I used these words, the more I felt connected to myself. My feelings had names, my heart had language, and everything softened, warmed up, and became easier. So I thought I would share it with you. Begin small. Right now, ask yourself, how do I feel? Whatever it is, try to say it in English, even if it's simple, even if it's wrong. Say it kindly. Say it clearly. Say it with care. Because when your feelings morph into English words, your English is no longer a skill. It becomes a part of you. You're not just learning English, you're living it. Chapter 4. I talk to me as well as to others. I want to tell you something that feels weird and kind of wonderful. I made all my best English-speaking friends. Not a teacher, not a friend, not a classmate, just me. And that changed everything. I was like many new learners. I waited. I waited for the right person to speak to. Adam. I waited to find another person that spoke the language. I waited for the right moment, but days passed, weeks passed, and I was still silent. And then one day, I looked in the mirror. I pointed at myself and said, "Hi, how are you today?" It felt silly. It felt strange. But it was a beginning. With that one sentence, a door opened to a brave new world. I realized that I didn't have to wait any longer. I was the opportunity. My voice, my thoughts, my reflection. That's all I need. So I started small. I told myself out loud every morning certain things. I am brushing my teeth. I look tired today. I have to go to work. Today will be a good day. An evening. I had a good day. I left out a word, but that's okay. I'm proud of my effort. No one listened. No one judged. It was just me and my voice. And over time, my confidence built. At first, I spoke aloud to myself only when no one was around. In the room, in the kitchen, in the shower, I would be telling them what I was doing. I am making tea. The water is hot. I like this cup. Then I added more. I pretended to talk to someone. How was your day? Really? Mine was okay. A bit busy. It was like acting, like rehearsal. But it wasn't pretend. It was practice. It forced me into real conversations. It made English sound as natural as it feels in my mouth. And then something miraculous happened. I had an English interview, a big one. I was nervous, very nervous. My hands were shaking. My heart was beating fast. But rather than freak out, I began to walk. And I talked. I recited every sentence out loud on the way from my house to the interview. Hello, nice to meet you. My name is... I have experience in... I'm interested in this opportunity because I walked and talked on the street by myself. Folks stared at me as if I'd lost my mind, but I didn't care. I was in the zone. With each step, I was gaining confidence, and I got there. I was prepared. I didn't freeze. I didn't forget. I said it so calmly, so clearly. That was the spike moment. That walk changed everything. I got it. When you talk to yourself, it ain't no joke. It is power. It is training. It is how you become fluent. You are always with yourself. In the car, in the room, in the bathroom, while walking, while waiting. And in every one of those moments, you are free to speak. You might be able to describe what you're seeing. You can question yourself. You can text in imaginary conversations. You can also repeat phrases you hear in a video. You can haunt a sentence you adore. Even one sentence a day is a little more strength. Here's a tip that worked for me. I chose one instance a day. At the store. How much is this? Can I have that in a different size? At the airport. Where is gate number 5? At the restaurant. Can I have a look at the menu? My mouth is so dry, I really need some water, please. I didn't even need a real store or airport. I needed nothing more than my imagination and my voice. Here is one more trick I employed: conversation over cooking. I am cutting the tomato. This smells good. Oh no, too much salt. All at once, my kitchen was my classroom. And the mirror? The mirror became my teacher. I could watch my face, my mouth, and my body language. I could smile, pause, and repeat. No fear, no pressure. I laughed and tried again when I messed up. Self-talk was my secret weapon. So here's what I want you to do, only I don't want you to wait. Don't wait for the perfect time or the perfect person. Don't wait until you are fluent to speak. Speak to become fluent. Be your own best partner. Be your own loud cheerleader. Be your own quiet coach. Talk to yourself kindly. Talk to yourself honestly. Talk to yourself in English. For when practicing on your own, you get ready for the world, and little by little, your voice gets strong, not just in words, but in confidence. Your thoughts become sound, your sound becomes speech, and your words are your strength. If I didn't have the words, I had the pictures. Before I even had a chance to say it, I could see it. That is how I began to build my English vocabulary, not from books or long lists, but from simple images in my mind. And then one day, I was holding a cup of hot tea. I stared at the steam rising, felt the warmth in my hands, and whispered softly, "A cup of tea." It was a modest moment, but how deep it was. I didn't look up the word in a dictionary. It's not something I learned from a lesson. I saw it first. Then I named it. And then, just like that, English was not just a subject. It became part of life. Here is something I learned. Every time we speak, we think in pictures first. When we say apple, we don't experience letters, a P-P-P-L-E. We see a round red fruit. When we say dog, we get an image of a dog, perhaps running or barking. So I used this natural power. Each time I saw something, I attempted to say it in English. If I was out walking, I studied the trees. Tree. I looked at the sky. Blue sky. I saw a bird. A small bird is flying. They were not grammar lessons. They were life moments. And they were real, which is why I remembered them. Seeing the pictures helped me to bond deeply with the language. I began by using only single words: chair, window, phone. Then I threw in a bit more: a brown chair, a big window. Where is my phone? And then full sentences. I am sitting on a brown chair. In front of me there's a big window. I can't find my phone. Gradually, images turned into words, and words became sentences, and sentences belonged to me. But the best part of the experience was one night, hearing him speak. I was heading home. It had been a long day. The sky was turning orange. The sun was low, nearly scraping the ground. Clouds were pink and soft. Everything was quiet. And I stopped. I looked at that sunset. And I said nothing in my first language. I said in English, slowly and softly, "The sky is so beautiful. It looks like a painting. This moment feels calm." and then something happened you might not have expected. Tears filled my eyes, not because I was sad, but I had just experienced a strong emotion in English. That was the spike moment. That was when I realized English was more than a subject I learned. It was something I lived. I began working out my mind since that day, exercising it to describe not just objects, but feelings, colors, smells, and sounds. When I cooked, I said, "The onion smells sweet. The oil is hot. I love the sound of frying." When I cleaned, I'd tell it, "I'm folding the clothes. This shirt is soft. The floor looks clean." When I saw people, my statement was, "She's looking tired. He is smiling. They are talking quietly." Each photograph allowed me to develop. That kind of thinking is potent because it is natural. You don't squeeze the tubes of the words, feel the image first. Your brain demonstrates the picture for you, and your tongue learns to label it. And here's one easy exercise you can give a spin. Close your eyes. Think of something that you love, a place, a person, or a food. But then see if you can describe it in English. One word, one sentence. That's enough. Something amazing. You'll find that the more you do this, the faster your thoughts turn into spoken words. Your speaking gets clearer, and the better you speak English. You don't translate anymore. You're living the language. This is how children acquire their first language. They perceive, they sense, and they listen, and then they talk. You can do this with English as well. Start with your life. Start with your moments. Start with your pictures. Practice, practice, practice all day long. He must speak exclusively in English. All you have to do is open your eyes and let your mind speak. And bit by bit, those images in your head start turning into beautiful English sentences in your heart. Chapter 6. How I made errors work for my ideas. At first, my mind had lots of errors, and that was okay. I'd think sometimes, "He goes to market." Immediately a part of me murmured, "No, he goes to the market." It was a powerful little moment, this silent correction. Because it was me listening to myself. I was learning, not just by speaking, but by thinking. Mistake. Only 10% of the mistakes we make when learning a language have to do with speaking. All language learners think mistakes only occur when we're talking, but I learned something else. I discovered that I was screwing up in silence, in my mind, and that those silent screw-ups served as silent teachers. I didn't even see the errors at first. I'd walk and think, "She likes apples." The more I practiced, however, the more I heard the wrong rhythm. It didn't make sense to me in my head, so I stopped. I corrected myself. "She likes apples." That slight difference set me aglow. It meant I was growing. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need a classroom, a teacher, or even a book for this sort of learning. You only need attention. You only need your thoughts. Because if you think in English, your brain becomes a mirror. It shows you what's right. Sometimes, very softly, it tells you what is not. This chapter is for those unassuming, courageous corrections. I recall an especially meaningful spike moment. I was trying to write a message to a friend in English. I wrote, "I can speak English." And just as I was about to click send, I hesitated. Wait, I thought. That doesn't feel right. I looked again. I can speak. No. Then I remembered. When you have can, the verb remains simple. It should be, I can speak English. It wasn't big or loud that moment, but to me it was like a party. As a result, I caught the error myself, before anyone else did. And that, my friend, is actual progress. Now, I don't fear mistakes. I welcome them. I have no problem seeing them as part of the process. When I'm in English and I say something and it comes out weird, I stop and say, does the verb agree? Did I pick the correct preposition? Is it in the car or on the car? Sometimes I don't know the answer. But even in that case, just by asking the question, I know I've grown. Because the next time I hear or read it, I'm given pause. Here is what I want you to remember. Thinking is practicing. Errors in your head are opportunities for your English to become better. And you can make every mistake a teaching moment. Try this simple habit. When you see an error, stop. Say it again, the right way. Smile. Because all you did was teach yourself. That's what I did. Every day. Many times. I would be sitting in there with a thought. She has my spoon. Then stop. She has my spoon. Better. Or I'd think, I am going to shop. Wait. I am going to the shop. Yes. These aren't grammar lessons from a book or anything like it. These were lessons in grammar from life, from my own thoughts. And the more I let myself be corrected, the less I erred the next time. I felt as if my English thoughts had been lubricated, clearer, more correct. It's like growing a plant. You give it a little water every day. You pull out the weeds, and one day you will see green leaves, then flowers. Mistakes are not weeds. There are indications that something is expanding. They demonstrate that your brain is attempting, striving, and discovering. Don't be afraid of them. Don't hide from them. Welcome them. Use them. Each point you correct in your head only makes your English more powerful. Confidence with every correction. And someday, like me, you'll catch yourself doing it before someone else does. And you'll smile, because that's when you will realize you really are thinking in English. Chapter 7. My brain was my accent coach. I started by talking in English in exactly the same way I spoke my own language. The words were in English, but the music was not. I didn't get this in the beginning. I figured, if I say the lines correctly, I think that's it. But something always felt fishy. One day I heard 2 short sentences in a video. Do you want some water? But not in so many words, at least not the speaker. They said, do you want some water? It was fast, smooth, software, almost like a song. And I learned, English has a beat, a sound, a melody, because I hadn't heard it in my head yet. That day, I attempted something different. Before I opened my mouth to speak, I recited the sentence in my head, with the rhythm that I'd just heard. I imagined the voice. I copied the sound. And gradually, my English inside voice altered course. This chapter is about the voice inside your head, the one that instructs you how to speak, not just what to say, and to sound right in the broader sense. I didn't require any class on pronunciation. I didn't care about a teacher correcting every syllable. I just needed my thoughts, my ears, my attention. So, I began doing it every day. When I heard a voice say, "How are you doing?" It wasn't just the words I understood. I heard the sound. I replayed it in my head. I mimicked it silently. "How are you doing? How are you doing?" Over and over. Not out loud, just in my thoughts. It was like you would sing a song in your head before you sang it out loud. This interior practice was my accent coach. It taught me more than any app or dictionary would. Here's the amazing reality. Your brain is listening, even when you are quiet. And when your thinking is imbued with the rhythm of English, your very speaking is transformed as well. One day, one of those spiked moments struck large. I was watching a short clip. A man said, "I'm going to go." Not, "I am going to go." It was short, quick, and instinctive. "I'm going to go." I paused the video. I didn't say it out loud. I repeated it in my mind, 5 times, 10 times. "I'm going to go. I'm gonna go." Later that night, I was talking to someone. I meant to say I was going away. Without thinking, I said, "I'm going to go." And it sounded right. It felt smooth, natural, not forced, not shy. I smiled, not because my pronunciation was perfect, but I had grown it inside. It started from a thought. That's what I want you to know. You don't have to nail every accent. All you have to do is hear the rhythm inside your head. Let your brain mess around with the sound. Your thoughts will learn the music of English before your mouth will. Try this simple technique. 1. Watch a short video, a real conversation. 2. Locate one piece that you find intriguing. 3. Close your eyes. 4. Say it to yourself, over and over, as if you were singing quietly to yourself. You don't need a mirror or a teacher, just your ears and your inner voice. Your mouth will naturally keep pace with every English rhythmic thought you produce. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one of these days, you'll say something, and you'll hear the difference. You'll sound clearer and smoother and more like yourself. And the amazing thing is that you'll know. It began in your mind. So think English in your head. But don't just think the words. Think the sound, the music, the pause, the flow. Because when your mind becomes your accent tutor, English becomes a melody. And that's when fluency is beautiful. Chapter 8. It was when I was tired that I began to think in English. English was not a forever thing then. When I started out, English had a time and a place. I only thought in English when I opened a book, pressed play on a lesson, or sat at my desk. It was almost as if English lived in some small cubbyhole of my day, coming out to say hello only when I asked for it. But something unexpected began to happen. It didn't shout. It whispered. One night when I was exhausted after a hard day's work, I lay down on the bed. I didn't even want to eat. I closed my eyes, and before I could stop myself, I murmured, "I'm so tired." Then I opened my eyes again. Wait, I'd said it in English, not in my native language, not on purpose. That tiny moment filled me with a silent joy, because I felt something had changed. My brain had decided, not by permission, not by design, that English was the language. This chapter is dedicated to that soft magic. It's for the moments you can't hold them at bay, when the English thoughts cross the threshold of your tired brain, not trying your best, but when you have nothing left to give. It happened again and again. I'd lose something and say, "Where did I put it?" The new cold made me feel a little chilled, and I thought to myself, "It's cold today." I didn't mean for these sentences to happen, they just came. It wasn't time to study. These were moments of life. That's when I realized the most profound learning doesn't happen while you're studying. It occurs when you're resting. That's when your brain is starting to think in English on its own, and that's the beginning of fluency. It means you are not just learning English anymore. You are living it. At the start, these moments were small and few, but the more I buried myself in English, the more frequently they arrived. I didn't force it. I was simply available for English to hang around. I watched a show for a few minutes before going to bed. I had one sentence in English while doing the dishes. I said something in English quietly to the guy in line. No pressure, no perfection, just gentle practice. And gradually, my exhausted brain learned to trust English. One morning, I woke up to my alarm. My eyes were still closed. My body didn't want to move. But my initial thought was straightforward. 5 more minutes, please. And I smiled. That is because that thought was in English, not even because I'd crammed hard the night before. No, not because I crammed the grammar, but my mind was starting to flip. That was my spike moment. I didn't run to tell anyone, but I think of it as a gift. I realized that I wasn't even learning English anymore. I was becoming a person who reasons in English. That is the silent reward of actual practice. Not just perfect scores or long hours of studying, but soft, sleepy thoughts that start deep within. So here's the thing I want you to know. If you think in English only when you study, that's 100% fine. But let it follow you. Let it be close to you when you're exhausted. Carry it with you when you're not seeking, because the day will come when your first thought of the morning will be in the English language, and you will understand. Your mind has changed. Your language has become your life. And that's the sort of learning that never goes away. So keep going, even when you're tired. Especially when you're tired, because that is when English is yours. Forever. Chapter 9. How my thoughts were useful for me. Personally, I never thought simple thoughts in my head could assist me in real life, but they did. I started by just allowing myself to think in English as practice. I'd tell myself, "Where is the spoon?" or "It's time to sleep." Just small, simple things. But one day, something changed. I was just wandering around a market in my city when a tourist approached me. She didn't speak very good English, Angulo said, and she had this lost little girl look to her, kind of, and she goes, "Do you know how to get to the museum?" And without even thinking in my home language, I replied, "Yes, straight, then take the left. It's near the big mosque." Full English sentences, clear, confident, and real. That was my spike moment. I didn't prepare for it. I did not open a book or check my grammar. I just spoke. The only reason I could speak is that I had already said those sentences in my head before just then. I'd fantasized about reaching out for help. I had pictured myself offering directions. I'd acted those small scenes for myself in my head, walking, pointing, explaining. So when the actual moment arrived, it didn't feel new. It was almost as if I'd already been there. That's the magic of thinking in English. It's life in there for you, quietly, gently, deeply. I used to believe I should practice speaking more, but I've discovered that mental speaking is powerful as well, because thought is no more than silent speech. And talking is just loud thinking. The more I rehearsed thoughts such as, "What's the price? Can I have tea, please? I'm trying to find the bus stop," the more comfortable saying them out loud. And not confidence, but peace. No shaking voice, no panic, no stress, because I had already lived through that moment in my brain. I recall visiting a little restaurant. Tuppence, the waiter, was of no language, and giving in instead to a smile, I said, "1 chicken sandwich and tea, please." He nodded, "No problem," and I felt so proud inside. It was as if it were a silent party. That was because that sentence had been forming in my mind for years and years, not one big study session, but many tiny moments. So what are the ways you can prepare for real life? You don't need a classroom. You don't need a teacher. All you need to do is find one moment alone and one honest sentence. Chances are it's not an unreasonable thing to think, but over time, thoughts like this become so common and so automatic that they become Pavlovian. For instance, when you're standing at the bus stop, think, "The bus is late." When you are in a store, say to yourself, "I want to buy this." Whenever you feel thirst, remind yourself, "I need water." These are real thoughts, and eventually they will turn into actual speech. You certainly don't need to know long phrases by heart. You just need to start living your life in English, since your real life is your greatest teacher, and your thoughts are your most valuable practice partner. All the tiny English sentences in your head are just getting you ready, even if no one hears it. Even if you never put it on paper, you're making something inside. And one day, when someone addresses you in English, you'll be prepared. Not because you learned grammar, but you've already lived that sentence before, in your head. So the next time you walk, cook, shop, or travel, let English walk with you. Think it quietly. Feel it softly. Everything you think becomes your words one day. How you are thinking today will be your speaking tomorrow. And one little sentence, uttered calmly and clearly, can change everything. Chapter 10. I turned into an English thinker. This chapter is special. It's not that there's one new trick. It's not about one more lesson. It's about something deeper. It's about what happens to you on the inside, slowly, quietly, when you stop learning English as a school subject and start living it as part of who you are. I remember the beginning. I was afraid to even say one thing out loud. I translated everything. I read every sentence twice. I would grow very heavy in my mind each time I thought of English. It was a mountain I had to climb. One small thing did change that, though. I began to dream in English. At first, just a little. A few words, a question, a sentence. Well, those little pieces added up. For then I no longer speak only English. I think in English. I plan in English. I feel in English. And every now and then, I even dream in English. Not that all thought is perfect. I don't mean it that way. No, far from it. I still make small mistakes. I still stop and tiptoe over my own words at times. But here's the difference. I've stopped trying to think in English. It just happens, like breathing. I don't think, what's the English for this? I say the word, because it's already in me. This was a change that didn't occur overnight. It was thought by thought and moment by moment. Some days I was tired. Some days I forget. But I always returned. I simply kept giving myself another chance. And then one day, something occurred that I will never forget. It was a quiet evening. I had my notebook. No teacher, no textbook. Just me and my thoughts. I hadn't intended to write anything. I was just sitting. Then something in me said, "Write." And so I did. No dictionary, no translation, no searching, just my feelings, and my heart is filled with the English words. I wrote a poem. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. It came from me. From the part of me that knew not only grammar and vocabulary, but something deeper, how to live a new language. That was the moment I knew. My thoughts were in English. Someone who doesn't just study words, but rather, someone who makes with them. It comes naturally to me now. I find myself thinking in English about the day ahead. I feel in English when I feel something new. When I solve problems, I think in English. I even comfort myself in English. It's okay, just try again. That sentence ever came to me in my mother tongue. Now it arrives in English, soft, kind, and real. So the next time you ask me, when will I be fluent? My response is simple. When English becomes your friend. When it's alive in the mind, no longer waiting for perfect, but walking with progress. Being an English thinker is not about mastering all things. It's about believing your mind, allowing English to grow inside of you, not just with books, but life. Not just with rules, but with moments. You're already on the path, so keep going. Keep planting small thoughts. Let them grow. Water them with practice, patience, and love. Because one day, you'll sit quietly and you'll hear your voice, the one inside, a quiet, confident, completely English voice. And that voice will be a voice that will say, I did it. I became an English thinker. And you'll smile, because you didn't learn a language. You created a new part of you, one thought by thought. You don't have to wait for the perfect day, the perfect teacher, or the perfect sentence. Just start with one thought, then another. And pretty soon, you'll be thinking in English. If this lesson was helpful to you, please like and comment, putting in your first English thought and help this channel grow. I swear, we'll get to expand together, thought by thought, word by word. You're not out here on your own. Let's keep going. Together.